All right, let's take a closer look now at all of these developments with CNN presidential historian Douglas Brinkley. Great to see you. It's been a while. Let's first start with this opinion piece, Douglas. Really extraordinary. How extraordinary is it? And do you see this to be perhaps the beginning of the end, especially when you see people inside the current administration saying these kinds of things that they have to thwart the president or protect him from the nation?
Well, it is quite extraordinary that this is happening, that you have a senior White House advisor saying there's a resistance movement within the White House to basically contain not Russia or China or some foreign threat, but contain their own president that they're serving. This anonymous piece is a part of a tradition of dissent sometimes within government. Back in the early Cold War, George Kennan wrote a famous Mr. X article, not using his name in Foreign Affairs, warning about a foreign policy threat. But this time we have somebody in government really chosen by the president, warning of just how dangerous and perilous it is to be around him. So it's stunning, it's shocking. It does more damage to the Trump White House. It's on the heels of Bob Woodward's book Fear, and you see the president just almost like visceral in his anger and lashing out of trying to find out who are his enemies within.
Yeah, well, there you go. And also we've already seen on some of the more right-leaning media, here is the deep state in action.
Well, that's right. And that's what the American right or Trump supporters going to say. There is a permanent deep state government, and now they're rearing up to try to dismantle Donald Trump's presidency. I wouldn't look at it that way. I would simply look at it that Donald Trump, as anybody who follows his Twitter feed knows, is deeply erratic. Tonight he's put the word treason up and question mark about who this anonymous person in his White House is. He's a president that even his friends, such as they are, will say that he's deeply paranoid about things. Well, imagine the paranoia now of walking around the West Wing or the White House or at a cabinet meeting not knowing who anonymous is. There is an all-points bulletin out within the Trump administration to try to figure out who wrote this op-ed piece for the New York Times. So it's not going to go away soon. And, of course, Bob Woodward's book hasn't even gone on sale yet. That won't be till next Tuesday. You know,
every time these kinds of books have been written, it didn't seem to move the needle. Trump's base remains supporting him. But now that you see there's people inside the administration who are extremely concerned, calling the president amoral, increasingly erratic and impulsive, do you see that this may be the beginning of the end, as I asked earlier, that the wheels are coming off this administration?
I think the wheels are coming off. A couple of wheels are off already. This isn't going to affect his base any, though. And the Republican Party has the big event happening right now. Brett Kavanaugh becoming a member of the Supreme Court. They're not going to want to blow that. Their justification for dealing with Donald Trump's strange behavior is that we got two conservatives into the Supreme Court. So I think that Trump will struggle along, and it'll be back to the midterm elections and see if the Democrats take control of Congress, if not the Senate. And if so, you'll start seeing subpoenas and talking of impeachment hitting Washington pretty hard in late November.
Yeah, it's interesting. The ABC News Washington Post poll puts the popularity now at 36%. A couple of others do as well. Now, that's down from the low 40s. So you're going to wonder, if, is there a little bit of a crack forming? I'm curious whether, when you see what's happening with this insider editorial, but also Bob Woodward's book, as you point out, and as you say, it's not even out yet, and there's going to be more dropping, because that's what publicists do with books like this. They didn't dump everything yesterday, that's for sure. What do you make of how Republicans in Congress are handling this? Mitch McConnell today basically blew it off on Fox. He said, oh, well, I don't know anything about that editorial. Why are they so protective of this president? Is it because of Supreme Court picks and things like that?
I think it's because of the Supreme Court right now. Most Republican senators are playing ostrich. They don't want to hear about Woodward. They don't want to hear about Anonymous. They may not privately be very thrilled with Donald Trump's behavior, his tweets, etc., but they're going to kind of hang in there with him and see what the midterms reap. If it is a blue wave and the Democrats take Congress and the Senate, you very well might start getting a gang of, say, 8 Republican senators that start turning on Donald Trump. CNN had Lindsey Graham on earlier and said if the Mueller report has any inclination to prove that there was collusion during the campaign with Russia on behalf of Donald Trump or associates, then he might very well turn on Donald Trump. So you might start seeing Republican defections, but I don't believe it'll happen till after the midterm.
So you think the presidency will bounce back as if, nothing happened?
Yeah, historically, speaking as a historian, can the presidency survive what we're seeing unfold here?
Yeah, of course, the American presidency will survive, and you're watching American democracy in action. Bob Woodward, credible journalists getting to sources. You see the press doing their job. We're seeing people that have been leaking out of the White House, Justice Department, State Department, et cetera, for the good of the United States. But it's bruising. And you never know when you're dealing with an erratic president. Richard Nixon in his last year before he resigned, people wouldn't even listen to his orders. He would say, go do things in the foreign policy arena, and people like Henry Kissinger would just say, yes, sir, and then not carry out the orders. Right. The Woodward book's intimating that is happening. There's a resistance movement to the point where even a document being swiped from the president's desk so we won't sign it or see it. There's a flanks of foot soldiers that are calling themselves the Trump resistance, and they were appointed by Donald Trump. So you're looking at how multi-layered American democracy is. But if we survived things like a civil war and Watergate, alas, one hopes that we'll be able to survive the Trump misadventures.
Well, as we're seeing, though, as you were mentioning, people choosing inside the administration country over party politics, at least from what we are being told in this op-ed. Douglas Brinkley, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Doug.